story begins in Los Alamos, New Mexico, in March of 1983, when the wail of sirens opens the calm of the snowy night as an ambulance races through the darkness. Inside, paramedics hover over a man whose body looks as though it's come in contact with asteroid juice. His face is completely wrapped in gauze, leaving only two dark holes where his eyes should be. At the hospital, nurses work frantically to keep him alive, threading tubes into his veins, securing oxygen, and doing whatever they can, but it's only enough to keep him breathing. Soon, a detective, who looks like a man who hasn't slept well in a very long time, arrives. He takes one look at the patient and exhales slowly, like he already knows this case is about to get strange. He leans in close and asks the man who he is and what happened to him, but the man can't speak because, more than just his face, his throat has also been ruined beyond function. The detective, improvising, pulls out a jotter and a pen and places them on the pavement before the man. Shortly after, a nurse comes to summon the detective about an urgent report someone in the hospital is trying to make to him. He leaves immediately and gets placed on the phone with a nurse from downstairs, who reports to him about a little girl who had come looking for the burned man, claiming to be his daughter. While he listens to her report, a nurse walks into the room where the burned man is being treated and suddenly starts screaming. The detective and the other staff around rush into the room to find out the cause of the commotion. On getting there, they are shocked to see that the man has jumped out through the window and ended his miserable life. On the jotter the detective had left are the words, "I'm sorry, Abby," written on them.
His daughter, when was this? Jesus, baby, Jesus.
A couple of weeks earlier, still in the same town, a woman is trying to hold a conversation with her 12-year-old son over dinner, but the boy isn't interested in all the things she's saying. He barely even touches his food. She receives a call from her husband, the boy's father, who lives in a different state because for some reason, the couple became unhappy and started processing a divorce. Hearing his parents argue ruins the boy's already non-existent appetite. He packs up his plates and grabs a knife from the kitchen counter on the way to his room. There, he puts on a funny mask and starts acting like a psychopath, thinking he's tough, but not realizing he actually just looks like an NPC. He flips out the light and uses his telescope to peep into his neighbor's apartments, where in one, he sees a woman and her husband trying to get some spicy action. His cover immediately gets blown as a vehicle pulls up at the apartment, shining its headlights directly at his room. From the vehicle emerges a little girl and an old man, assumed to be a father, carrying a huge box. They have just moved into the building and will be staying in the apartment right next to his mother's. The following day in school, Owen, the little boy, is being picked on by a group of bullies, with a boy named Kenny as their ringleader. Kenny and his goons corner Owen at his locker after swimming practice, and beat him up because putting others down makes them feel more in control, and helps them hide the insecurities that somehow forced them into being bullies in the first place. Unfortunately for Owen, he happens to be their dopamine. The boys pin him down and do the ultimate 90s bully move, pulling his underwear far above his belt and calling him a little girl. Owen screams in pain and ends up pissing himself. The boys then call him a freak and make fun of him as they leave. Later that evening,
Little girl?
Owen goes to a grocery store where he purchases some candy. While making a payment, he sees a little table knife on the counter, which immediately catches his attention. He sees it as a mythical weapon, which would undoubtedly give him the edge over his ops in school, so he purchases it as well. Night falls again, and Owen is alone in the courtyard of his apartment complex, dressed in his winter coat. In his hands, he clutches the newly purchased weapon and repeatedly stabs it into the bark of a tree. Under his breath, he whispers threats, little rehearsed lines he wishes he could say to the bullies who make his life miserable at school. He hears a sound from behind and immediately turns around, only to see the same little girl who arrived at their apartment the previous day, standing barefoot in the snow while staring at him. She asks him what he's doing, and he asks her back. The girl then casually mentions that she can't be his friend. He asks why, and she tells him she just had to state it for the record as she leaves. He resumes his stabbing until he notices the man he...
How do you know? I live next door to you. I can't be your friend.
Perceives to be the little girl's father, trying to light a cigarette at a safe distance from them. The man leaves the environment and heads to a nearby store to resume his smoking. The suspicious-looking man locks in on a man who arrives at the same store to do some shopping. He sneaks into the man's car and lies in ambush for him. When the man comes out and gets back into his car, he ends up abducting him. He takes him to the woods, where he kills him and drains his blood into a bottle with accuracy and precision, hinting that it's not his first time doing this. He missteps on his way back and ends up spilling the entire blood in the snow. He arrives home tired and gets into an argument with the little girl. Owen, nosy as ever, tries to listen in on their conversations from his apartment, but can't make out their words. The following day, it is announced in Owen's school that one of their alumni was found dead. That evening, Owen sits in the same apartment courtyard, handling a Rubik's Cube. The little girl pulls up again and asks what the weird thing in his hand is. Owen is blown by the fact that she doesn't know what a Rubik's Cube is. He shows her how it's handled, gives it to her, and then heads upstairs before his mom starts to worry about him. For a while, the girl sits in the quiet of her surroundings, completely absorbed in the colorful puzzle cube in her hands. She turns it over, and the geometric problem slowly yields to her focus. Suddenly, a deep, primal growl erupts from her stomach, a sound that immediately overrides all thought. She drops the cube with a clatter.
I don't really get cold.
And driven by a gnawing hunger she can no longer ignore, she heads into a nearby tunnel, where she assumes a convincing facade of being a homeless child. A compassionate passerby, seeing her in her apparent plight, tries to offer her help. In that fleeting moment of kindness, her true nature takes over. With a speed that defies human perception, she transforms into a terrifying beast. She falls upon the unsuspecting man and sinks her fangs into his neck as she feasts on his blood, granting him a quick and excruciating end. When she finally returns to her home, her so-called father lashes out at her for her recklessness. He knows what she's done, and the rage is not just for her, but for the messy aftermath she's left behind. After his terrible lecture, he storms out into the freezing night to take care of the body, a grim chore he has performed far too many times. Meanwhile, Owen, from the isolation of his apartment, listens to their muffled argument with a building sense of frustration. The walls are too thick, so the sounds are too indistinct. He is not satisfied with being a passive observer. He wants to understand. The next day at school, in the middle of a mundane class, he secretly pulls out a book on Morse code that he borrowed from the library. He pores over the dots and dashes, his focus so intense that he is completely oblivious to the attention he is drawing. This uncharacteristic academic effort is enough to infuriate the bullies, who despise anyone who seems to be trying to improve themselves. They pick on him as usual, leaving him with a deep, fresh gash on his face.
Show me!
Later that evening, in the courtyard, Owen carefully explains the principles of Morse code to the girl. He shows her how they can tap out messages to each other, and no one else would understand. She finally introduces herself as Abby. She notices the scar on his face and asks what happened. He tells her about the bullies. She goes quiet for a while,
You're a girl, and I'll help you.
and then tells him that to stop them, he's going to have to hit back. Owen explains that even if he could take one of them out, they would still kick his ass because they've got numbers. She just casually tells him she'd protect him if it comes to it, making him wonder what kind of girl she is.
What happened there? Some kids from school? Hit them harder than you dare.
One night, Owen steals money from his mom's purse and uses it to flex Abby at a convenience store. Owen offers her some of his favorite candy, but she rejects them. Seeing the look of disappointment on his face, she agrees to it and tries to eat the candy.
Guess I could have one. Really?
But she ends up throwing up. Owen instinctively hugs her. She asks him if he likes her, and he tells her he does. She then asks if he'd still like her if she were not a girl. Confused, he asks her what she means, but they casually dismiss the topic and head back home.
Owen, do you like me? Yeah.
When Abby gets home, her old man scolds her about seeing Owen. He grabs a backpack and gets ready for another hunt.
Is there a choice? Please don't see that boy again.
He waits outside at a convenience store for his next mission and tracks his target. Everything goes smoothly until a teenager gets into the vehicle as well. The teenager happens to be Kenny, Owen's nemesis. Another person being in the vehicle has already messed up his plan. The dude stops at a gas station to buy some gas, and Abby's caretaker seizes the opportunity to try to kidnap Kenny. He manages to knock him unconscious. Then he tries to drive away in the car, but gets into a severe accident while trying to practice his need for speed moves. The car goes careening off the road, flipping into a snowbank. Injured, and knowing he will be caught, the man quickly grabs a bottle of acid and pours it over his own face, destroying his features. Abby hears it in the news about the man who self-inflicted acid burns over his face and torso, and she immediately knows it's the man taking care of her. She walks down to the hospital and requests to see him, introducing herself as his daughter. They deny her access because he had been put in a restricted area and is now under strict supervision. Abby heads out and starts to climb the building like that one Avenger. It is at this moment that the detective receives a call and has to step out of the room. She gets to his room and is sad to see him in his condition. He sees her by the window and opens it for her. For having failed her, the man offers himself to Abby, and she digs into his red juice. When she's done, he's so weak that he just falls out the window and crashes into the floor. Now completely alone, Abby continues her strange friendship with Owen. He grows more curious and more suspicious of what she really is.
May I come in?
One night, she appears at his window and asks him to invite her in, which he does. That night, he asks her to be his girlfriend, and she agrees. The next day, at school, Owen finally decides to fight back against the bullies. During an ice skating field trip, Kenny pushes him too far, and Owen swings a metal pole into the side of his head, splitting his ear. The whole class gets into a commotion, not only for what Owen did, but because they had seen a dead body in the frozen waters. It happens to be one of the bodies Abby's caretaker had tried to hide for her. Owen almost gets suspended for what he did, but the school principal gave him a pardon because he's not the type to resort to violence. Owen takes Abby somewhere hidden, where he tries to get her to agree to making a blood pact. It's not really a good idea, because the moment Abby sees his blood, she loses it and transforms into her beast form. Knowing that she cannot do anything to harm Owen, she storms away in search of another target. Owen is beyond shocked. Abby ends up biting one of their neighbors, but leaves her alive, although in critical condition. The woman gets rushed to the hospital and gets given intensive care. Owen doesn't know what to do. He tries to talk to his parents about what's going on, but none of them seems to be ready to listen to him. Poor Owen has no choice but to head over to Abby's apartment to talk to her directly. That night, Abby tells him everything he needs to know about herself. First of all, she tells him she's not really a girl, not in the way he thinks. She's been 12 years old for a very long time. She shows him an old photograph of her caretaker as a boy. He was once in the same place Owen is now. Owen understands that this means that if he stays with her, he might one day become what the man was. He'd eventually become her partner, her provider, her guardian.
What are you gonna do to me? I told you we couldn't be friends.
The woman who was taken to the hospital wakes up, but differently. She sees blood on her hand and instinctively starts to chew on it like a wild animal. A nurse just goes into the dark room and opens the curtains for better illumination. All of a sudden, the woman starts to burn from the sunlight. The entire room catches fire, and the nurse loses her life in the process as well. Abby visits Owen at home and asks him to invite her in. To test her, he steps aside and says she can enter without permission. She hesitates, then steps forward. Immediately, her body begins to bleed from the skin, her eyes, her mouth. It is as though the air itself is rejecting her. Panicked, Owen quickly shouts that she can come in. The bleeding stops. Abby stands there, pale and shaking, proving beyond doubt that she is something far from human.
I just know this is what happens if you don't invite me in.
The detective investigating the string of murders eventually tracks Abby to her apartment. During the day, he breaks in, finding the place eerily quiet. In the bathroom, Abby sleeps in the bathtub, wrapped in blankets to shield herself from the sun. The detective pulls the blanket back, revealing her pale face. He tries to remove the barricade, which was used to block sunlight from entering the apartment. But just then, Owen, who was also in the apartment, yells at him to stop. The noise wakes Abby, and she launches at the detective, killing him violently. Afterward, Abby tells Owen she has to leave town. She kisses him goodbye and vanishes into the snowy night.
Owen, I have to go away.
Days later, the tension that had been simmering finally boils over. Owen is lured into a trap in the school's indoor pool. His opponent this time around is none other than Jimmy, the older brother of Kenny, his nemesis. Kenny and his friends are also there, silent spectators to the revenge they've been craving. A teacher, who might have been able to intervene, gets locked out of the building so as not to ruin the fun, leaving Owen completely isolated. Knowing he's in a desperate situation, Owen pulls out his small pocket knife as a last resort for self-defense, but it's a futile effort. They disarm him with ease, like the knife is nothing but a useless toy in their hands. Jimmy then grabs Owen and, with a powerful shove, throws him into the deep end of the pool. Next, he begins his cruel, sadistic game, where he gives Owen an impossible choice, telling him that if he can stay underwater for a full 3 minutes, he'll just get a small poke on his cheek. But if he can't, the punishment is far more gruesome, because he will take his time to gouge out his precious eyes for what he did to his brother's ear.
You stay underwater. If you can do it, I'll just give you a little nick and a poke out one of your eyes.
Without another word, Jimmy shoves Owen's head underwater and holds him down. The seconds tick by, agonizingly slowly. Even Kenny, whose desire for revenge had started all of this, begins to feel a pang of conscience. He starts to plead with his brother to let Owen go, but Jimmy's rage has consumed him. He ignores Kenny's pleas and holds Owen's head under the water for what feels like an eternity.
Okay, Jimmy. Shut up.
Suddenly, a pair of severed legs floats past. The water clouds with blood as chaos unfolds just out of frame. One by one, the bullies are slaughtered. When Owen is finally pulled up, gasping for air, Abby stands there, before him, proving that she'd always keep her own end of the bargain. Time passes, and Owen rides a train with a large wooden trunk sitting in front of him. From inside, Abby taps gently, and Owen smiles and taps back. Outside, the snow-covered desert speeds past. Together, they are leaving Los Alamos, bound for an unclear future that could either be terrifying or comforting. The end. Thank you for sticking with the end of my video. Please do me the biggest favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you in the next video.